All right, it's My Little Underground. I'm Peter A, joined by Connor today. This is the last show of the year, and you know what that means. It's finals time. We both have our red pens, click, click, to go through some of our favorite full-length albums and even concerts of the second half of the year. Thank you for joining me, Connor. There's a lot to talk about. I know this was hard for you. This wasn't as hard for me to pick some of my favorite stuff of the year, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Okay, yeah. So I want to first talk about an album that came out not even just a few weeks ago, and it kind of snuck in right under there for me in terms of like the albums. It really just made the cutoff for the year. And it's Wise Blood new album. And it is her, I believe it's her third album.
Wise Blood.
And Wise Blood, yeah. Kicked off with a single a few months ago. It's Not Just Me, It's Everybody. And it was sort of similar to Titanic Rising in the sense that it had these really lush instrumentation, and the vocals were really pretty, and just it was just a gorgeous song. And so the album is And in the Darkness, Hearts Aglow. And it's sort of a pandemic album. I feel like we're kind of in that time where a lot of these artists are putting out, if they haven't released in a few years or if they released in 2019, we're getting their like pandemic album. And I feel like this is exactly that for Wise Blood. And it's got some absolutely stunning tracks. I mean, like It's Not Just Me, It's Everybody. Grapevine, God Turned Me Into a Flower is like this like synth heavy, uh, washed out ballad, but not even a ballad. I mean, it is sort of a ballad, but it's just gorgeous. And I have to give it a few more listens, but I've listened to it a few times, and I really think that it's a standout in her discography. And I don't think she's coming to New York to tour. Like I saw, it's New York is not on the list, but yeah, I think Wise Blood and In the Darkness, Hearts Aglow is definitely on my list. And I didn't, have any expectations for it. I mean, I love Titanic Rising, but I didn't know what this was going to be. But I'm really surprised in how it turned out.
Mm-hmm. So the first on my list, Grace Ives. You know about Grace Ives, right? We've talked
Mm-hmm.
about her before. Her new album, Janky Star, came out, the early part of summer. I love this album because it is, to me, like the shape of pop to come. It's really like it's a pop album that can set an example for future pop albums because it's lively, it's pulsating, it's fun, it's accessible, and it's not like it's not formulaic really. It's not, yes, it's very catchy, sweet, and bubbly, but it it doesn't sound exactly like anything else. Like I can't make a direct comparison instantly to someone else. Maybe somebody else can, but when you hear a lot of like, popular music, if you're listening to the radio or if you're listening to, a curated Spotify playlist, a lot of these things will sound the same. But Grace, to me, she sticks out. And what I'm huge on as far as full-length albums are concerned is the length of it, because a lot of albums overstay their welcome. Janky Star is not one of them. This clocks in at about 27 minutes, and it's a fun listen all the way through. And I really loved the gentle, breezy intro and Isn't It Lovely? And Loose, which was one of the first singles of the album, has a lot of really gorgeous backing vocals. I'm a sucker for backing vocals, and it's so groovy and it's fun. Has this really just obtrusive bass line that's just phenomenal. This is such a great album.
Yeah, I know we've talked about Grace Ives in the past, and I saw that on your list. I was like, oh, I really have to check that out. But my list was like, I was like, oh, and I did listen to some of it, and I was like, wow, I have to really like take some time and sit with this and just absorb it. So that's on my list for the rest of the year for December to just like dive into and totally check out. But there's an album or a group that they were not on my radar at all. Not until honestly 2 months ago. I don't know, 2 months ago. And it's Domi and JD Beck. And I think when I listened to them, I sent you a text and I was like, this band, and I know they've been around for a long time, But the album is Not Tight. It came out in July,
Yeah.
and I was just sort of blown away by their skill in improvisation and their frenetic energy. They've even got Thundercat on one of these tracks. And I know they just played it on Fallon, I think, or they had Mac DeMarco on Fallon. Anyway, so they've really been blowing up, and I kind of took note and I listened to the album a few times, just blown away again by just their like appreciation for jazz, and it's just like it's goofy at times, it's really really groovy at times, uh, but it's just so layered. There's just so much to it. They really just, I feel like they're huge jazz fans, they're huge music fans, I think overall, and they try to stuff everything, all of their influences and just everything they enjoy into one album. And I really feel like they did it successfully. And I mean, it's up for a Grammy, but it's still in my book. I mean, it's one of the best albums of the year. So that's all that really matters. And I know they played New York City Le Poisson Rouge a few months ago, and I'm kicking myself for not going because that's such a small, intimate venue. And they're this like powerhouse group. But yeah, I'm really excited for this album and like to see what else they do in the past. Because I know I had heard about them through like, I know they were sort of adjacent to the Thundercat camp. And anyone that's like associated with Thundercat, you've already got you've already got me. So but JD, Domi and JD Beck, Not Tight, is definitely something to listen to.
I have to be honest, I wasn't really fair to this album when I first heard it. I just kind of heard it like in passing. I'm like, I dismissed it. But
Mhm,
I'm gonna give it another shot, just because I want to be fair. I don't want to just
mhm.
poo-poo in something at first listen. Some things you can, but some things you can't. But speaking of multi-layered and very jazz inspired, Time Warp from K Loggins, and that's Time Warp is the product of K Loggins. Her new album, Spiral World. It is one of the most interesting electronic albums I've heard in a long time. And there was a good amount of electronic albums that came out this year that I really liked. One I'll talk about a little later that you actually recommended to me. But anyway, with Spiral World and Time Warp, these are kind of dance tunes for intimate settings. Like they're really good if you're working from home and you need a little bit of a boost, you want to take a little break, you want to dance a little bit. If you're, let's say, if you're dating somebody, you're living with someone, you want to have a dance party between you two, and this is a perfect album for you. But it's also a great album to just relax and experience, and it's very free flowing, like a jazz album. And a lot of the album has a consistent sound. It has a kind of spacey, ethereal, aesthetic, but it doesn't. No song is like exactly the same. Like
Mhm.
Lupron is very just get up and dance. And then there's the two-parter, No Furniture and Tanagra. That's more of an experience that you can almost sit in a theater and just take it all in. And it's absolutely stunning and it's exciting. It's not just atmospheric just to be atmospheric.
Mhm.
There's a point to everything, and there's so many different instruments that come in and play an important role. They're not just there just to impress anyone. It all works and it's all authentic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's something that, I mean, I wasn't aware of it when you sent me your list. I didn't know Time Warp. So that's something that now I have to, and I'm excited to kind of go in and check out, because any album that's like described as sort of dancey, but like not like an intimate dancey kind of feel, like that's just a really interesting mix. Um for me. But I mean, speaking of albums that sort of have a point to them, or like there's a lot, kind of that like artists imbued in it. Alabaster de Plume, I feel like is this not unknown, but at least unknown to me for a long time until this year. Jazz musician, like this saxophonist, but also poet. And so the album is Gold. It came out this year. And it's sort of this meditation on different aspects of life, kind of mixed in spoken word with poetry, um, and jazz. And it's a little avant-garde. It's kind of probably the most avant-garde or experimental album that I have on my list. And also not something that I would generally listen to like frequently. I mean, for me, I'll listen to like an experimental album and I'll go, that's cool. And then it's not, the replay value is not there for me. I'm like, oh, it's cool. And then I move on. This was different for me. I really was like, oh my God, this is like, there's just so much to it. Like you hear a song and you go, what was he saying? Let me go back and listen to it. And like also the instrumentation is just going off the wall. Um, so you just listen to it over and over. And it's just an incredibly dense album filled with like meditations again on like life and like ambition and relationships. And I think that it does a really good job or a really interesting job of presenting all this stuff in a really unique way. I mean, songs like, I mean, Fucking Let Them is a really good one. Don't Forget You're Precious. And I'm Not Good at Crying. I mean, these are all really, really incredible tracks, and but just nestled amongst other really solid tracks. And it's not an album that I've heard before, so it stood out to me in the sense that it was just unique, but it had a lot of replay value for me. So, Alabaster de Plume, the album is gold. Also, the album cover is gorgeous. I mean, it's just like it's a work of art. So, that was the first thing for me. But Alabaster de Plume, gold.
The next album on my list is an album I know you enjoyed as well, and it's the latest Alvvays album, Blue Rev. And this band was always like hit and miss for me. Like I've always appreciated their style and their sound because they have like a noise pop element that's, you know, comes straight from the cloth of Jesus and Mary Chain. They even wrote a song tributing Jesus and Mary Chain on their last album. And they have like a ethereal shoegazy presence that's reminiscent of My Bloody Valentine, but they're cut from that cloth and they're evolving that sound forward, in my opinion. And this new album, to me, it has a lot of lyrical and pop flavor. You know, the pop flavor is what you're gonna get, but like there's a lot of great lyricism on here, especially like Easy on Your Own. That's a song I've been listening to non-stop since they dropped it before the album came out. And just the intro, the first few words here, the first few lines are just unbelievable. Like the way it starts, I dropped out, college education's a dull knife. Oh my God. Even if you don't believe in the lettered life, that is so beautiful. That is just gorgeous. And then Molly goes on to sing, and how I gauge whether this is stasis or change. That is just so beautiful.
It's an incredible album, and I when I first heard the singles, I wasn't. I mean, I thought they were fine. I thought they were good. I wasn't totally blown away by them, but hearing them in the context of Blue Rev as a whole, just changed my perspective on them. And I agree. I mean, like the lyricism on this album is phenomenal, and I just, you know, for the third album, I really think the first one was I thought it was great, perfect. The Anti-Socialites second album I thought was also really good. It was a good like indie pop kind of album that was more rock, I guess, focused or driven, and it was kind of turned up a notch. But this, you're right, I think is kind of taking all those elements and those influences and like pushing them forward in a lot of ways. And I think they succeed really well in doing it, and it has a ton of replay value for me. I mean, I've been just listening to it over and over and over and over. I mean, the first few songs, Pharmacist is great, Easy on Your Own, but then also like Belinda Says,
Oh, love it.
Pomeranian Spinster, I think is my top track from this. And yeah, I'm sad that I never got to see them live this year. I missed
Same.
them if they play King's Theater, but
And that's speaking of a venue that's far away, like that. King's Theater is
it's too
not
far.
close. Yeah, it's
I'm
ridiculous.
not I'm not I'm not going. I don't care. I don't care if my favorite artist who's playing a free show just to me. I'm not going. I'm not doing it.
It's a trek.
You,
It's a
you,
bit of a trek.
it's a trick. Yeah, no, yeah, it's too much.
That
But
part of Brooklyn, like you need a car. Like you do. Like you
and
can get that, like, you know, you can get there by train, but you're gonna be on a train for like an hour and change. Yeah.
yeah,
So
and it's weird because it's like close enough to where it should be close. Like
yeah.
it shouldn't be that far. The trains though.
But I need to get there at least once, you know? I gotta
Yeah,
go because that's the one venue that was a few that I just haven't been to. I haven't seen a show there yet. I have to
there
do it.
there
Like Radio
is. I know
City.
we'll talk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, no, go ahead. Radio City. Yeah.
Radio City Music Hall like was a venue that I've always wanted to go to ever since I was a kid, and I saw one of my favorite songwriters there, Courtney Barnett. So that was, that was a nice little rite of passage there. I'm glad I got to see
That
that.
that was this year, right?
Yeah, that was this year.
That
I
was,
can't forget
yeah.
it. It was amazing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know we're going to talk about shows later on, but there's
Yeah,
a show coming, or there's a venue opening up called Racket. I think, have we talked
yeah.
about Racket? Yeah. The real estate's playing, Deer Tick are playing. There's a few early shows that have been announced, but it's interesting. I don't know what their vibe
2010s
is.
indie rock. Let's go.
It's the 2010s indie rock. Yeah. They're going to get Parquet Courts to open up.
All right, we're going
I'm
back to the
excited.
2010s. Let's go.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I mean, like, I'm glad we both had Blue Rev on the list because that's definitely something I wanted to talk about. And I know there's another album that we also have on our list that I wasn't that I think I recommended to you, or like,
Yep.
but it's uh what's the name? A Tropical Dancer
Yeah,
by
Charlotte
Charlotte.
Adigery
Yeah, yeah.
and Bolus Popul.
Yes, this album totally blew me away. I found it through an Instagram post back in whenever it was, September, October. Um, and I wanted to see like who this artist was, and they had tagged him, and I checked him out, and I was like bored or something. And I listened to his song. I was like, this is nice. Listened to the whole album. I was like, oh my God, where has this been? No one was talking about it. But yeah, do you want to talk about why you like it? And then I can talk about why I like it, because I think this is my favorite album of the year, honestly.
Yeah, you can talk about it first. You're
Oh
probably gonna
yeah.
say some of
So
the things that I'm gonna say, but go ahead.
yeah, I mean, like, I was completely blown away by not only the lyricism of this album, and the group as a whole, but by just how kind of nice those the instrumentation and the production was, and how well it hit. I mean, there's one song that just blows me away. It's a haha, and
I love that one. Love it.
it's so good. But it's like, it's funny in for some sense, but it's also it just kind of hits that right, note for me. Like, it's just an incredibly dancey song, and the production is phenomenal. Um, but like songs like Hey, Reappropriate, and then there's a French one. I can't pronounce the French name, but it's one of the biggest songs. And then Making Sense, Stop, and Mantra, I think, is my top song. But I'm just blown away by the lyricism, and like how they incorporate these lyrics into like a dance track, in a way, like an electronic kind of track. So yeah, I'm still listening to it and giving it. I listen to it at least once a week, to be honest. The album. So
Yeah, it's this album. Since you recommended it to me, I can't stop thinking about it, especially Esperanto. And I liken this album to if you're at a club, you're at a dance party, and the person you're dancing with, you're talking about what's going on in the world. You're talking about privilege and all this kind of things, microaggressions, and this album, and it invites conversation, but it wants you to have a good time, but it doesn't want you to get distracted by the pulsating danceable rhythms. And it really talks to the privileged person. It really makes them question everything, or anyone who has any kind of modicum of privilege, but maybe most specifically white folks. But as cis male, makes me think of what my privilege is. It's just one of those things. It just makes you think. It really just makes you think. But you can, like, I don't need every song that I love to be about something. But if it is about something and it's interesting, it's great to think about and to talk about. Especially if the music itself is good, because sometimes the concept is good, but the music bad. Sometimes the music's good, but the concept is bad, and whatever. But this is a nice duality. Like, it's the music's great and the concept is phenomenal, and it's not like obnoxious or cheesy or forced.
it's done really cleverly. I think the way they incorporate these lyrics and these topics into the songs is done in a way where, you're right, it doesn't distract. you from the music and vice versa. I mean, I think they really complement each other well, the lyrics and the actual production of it. Um, so it's just done really well, and it's you can't ignore one or the other. I mean, you're listening to it and you're like, oh, that's okay. So this is what they're talking about, you know. But you also, I don't know, it's really well packaged and well done. So yeah, I think it's phenomenal. And again, for concerts, heard about them literally the day after they played like Webster Hall, like after the New York date. I was like, well,
Wow.
shit, you know, can't see them. But yeah, I'm trying to think if I have any additional. I mean, we went through, um, yeah, I think those are my albums, my
Yeah,
top
I
albums of
have
the year,
one
my
more album.
standouts.
Well,
One more, okay,
we shared two albums, so that's kind of great.
yeah,
I'm kind of glad we did that. So
yeah,
my
yeah.
last album on my list is Artisan P, Golden Summer. And Artisan P, he's a rapper down in Tallahassee, Florida. He's got his own label, Citronella Room. And this album that he put out is what hip hop needed, because there's been a lot of terrible press for hip hop recently, because a lot of rappers are getting killed. And Artisan P's album, I don't know if he was thinking about this. I never asked him about it, but it is a lot of positivity and just motivation, and it really just makes you feel good listening to a rap song. And it's like you're listening to hip hop, and I love hip hop generally speaking. And I just think about, okay, there's a lot of horrible things happening, but this album is like a glimmer of hope. And on the music side of things, he definitely evolved and progressed his song structure, because before, his earlier work is, he has a really fly, soulful beat, and he's just rhyming, 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 rhyming. But here it's like he has a structure. He's writing a song. He's got a hook, and he's got great dense verses, what he's good at doing. But especially like a song like Adult Swim, it's a very well produced song, and the verses are phenomenal, and the hook is great, and it's just an overall great song with some great rapping. It's just it's
Mhm.
phenomenal. And conceptually, Golden, one of the first singles on, it's just about pushing forward, keep going, and staying the course. And to me, it kind of relates to Artisan P as an artist and as a aspiring label head. Like, he has his own label out now. He's trying to get that going, and just being an artist, what that means. And you kind of have to push forward. He has to kind of follow his own advice to push forward and stay the course if you really want to do this. So I would, it's an also a very tight and concise album too. It's not a double, triple album. Um, and if anyone, especially people who love hip hop, are looking for any kind of positivity given this negative few years of what's been happening, listen to this album. You're just going to feel at ease. So now
Yeah,
we can
I
talk about
feel
our concerts that we enjoyed this year. And there's two that have been top of mind. It was hard for both of us because we've been to a lot of shows. So I'm gonna let you go.
mhm.
You share some of your give me two shows.
I'll do, we could trade off. I'll do the one
Yes.
show and then you do, yeah. And then this show was undoubtedly like one of the best of the year. The second one I have to think of, but this one absolutely hands down was top notch, and it was the Yeah Yeah Yeahs at
Oh,
Bristol Stadium. And I hadn't seen them before. But I'd spoken to you about them and seeing them live, and every single time you were like, one of the best shows, just one of the best shows, that you've seen. And you were right. I mean, I was in Forest Stadium, which I hadn't been to before, but I was in. You couldn't go further back than where I was. If you walked a foot back, you were falling off. Literally, you were out of the
yeah,
stadium.
yeah.
Like, I was at the back, the nosebleeds. Um, but even then, and it was cold, rainy, and shitty, but it was still such a phenomenal show. I mean, I had a front, like, it was in the middle of the stadium. I had a whole view of everything, and they played. I mean, they didn't waste any time. They showed up. They played "Burning," I think was the first song, or "Spinning Off the Edge of the World," and then a few other ones from "Cool It Down." But they kind of went into like they played both deep cuts. Like I don't know if Down Boy's deep cut, but they played Down Boy from
That's a bit of a deep
Is.
cut. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That whole
yeah.
EP is like,
Eh,
you're a true fan, not a true fan, but like you're a fan of Yeah Yeah Yeahs if you listen to that EP.
yeah, and they played I think like two songs from that. So they kind of went from deep cut to like obviously like big hits like Zero or like Heads Will Roll. Um, and yeah, I just think it was a phenomenal show. I mean, I was so far, Karen O and the band were like ants to me, but um they just the light show and the energy that was there. Also, Japanese Breakfast opened up.
Yeah, how was
So I
that?
mean, it was great. I mean, there was some technical difficulties with her set. And it was strange because it wasn't like a traditional Japanese breakfast set. It was like shortened. So it was like a 25 to 30 minute set. And that's not really what I'm used to for Japanese breakfast. Um, but it was still nice. And they killed it. And the Lindas opened up for Japanese breakfast. Um, so the whole show was memorable and just like had this really intense, nice, palpable energy to it. Um, and it was their biggest New York show
Yeah,
ever,
yeah,
which
probably.
I was shocked to hear, honestly. I would have thought that they played like the Garden or something like that, but apparently that was the biggest New York show and they killed it. So, and it was the release show for Cool It Down.
Yeah,
So
and
that's my, yeah.
that was like like a really good moment for like Asian Americans, which is like you're in Queens too. That's so cool. I like yeah, I was out on Long Island during that, so I missed that. I know it was rainy and gross. But when I saw Yeah
Mhm.
Yeahs 9 years ago at Prospect Park, it was one of the best shows I've ever been to, and it was so much fun. They're such a fun band. They have so much life. It's only three people, and their songs are just they can do it in front of like they could have done that like in MetLife Stadium or whatever, and they could have like filled the room with their sound because there's Karen is so lively. Nick is just he's also a lively guitar player, and Brian, oh my god, don't get me started. Brian Chase is just he's ridiculous on the
Yeah.
kit. So yeah, if you're a fan of Yeah Yeahs, you gotta see him at least once in your life. But one of the
Yeah.
shows that I've been to this year that I can't stop thinking about, and it was phenomenal for a multitude of reasons. It was Homeboy Sandman at Baby's All Right. Now, what made this show interesting is that it was a late show. Like doors were like 10 o'clock.
Ah,
Oh my god. And he was playing with Decca, and Decca is a really skilled lyricist, and his delivery is like daggers. Like he's really talented. And he opened, I think he went on like at 10:30 or something, and he was so good, but I was so tired. Like I do not like late shows. I really don't. I love going to concerts. I like going places and going out to eat and all that stuff, but I'm a homebody at heart, so it was really challenging for me. Um, but when Homeboy Sandman showed up, he went on at like 11:30.
mm,
Oh my goodness. He was phenomenal. I forgot that it was so late when he got on. I was like, this guy, this is amazing. He's so energetic and he's very tall and he's very commanding and he was so relaxed. Like, this is what he does. Like, he told me when he was on here, he was like, I spend time with the rhyme. Like, that's what he does. And he just knocked it out of the park. And such a good performer. I know there's a lot of like, within hip hop, there's a lot of criticism with performance. Like some guys, they either phone it in or they rely on a backing track and they don't actually rap very well live. They don't remember their words. And Homeboy Sandman was not one of those guys. He said every lyric he ever wrote and he spit it with energy and he this is like he meant what he said. It was phenomenal, just unbelievable. He's one of my favorite rappers right now, and I'm glad I got to talk to him, and I'm glad I got to see him live. It was just phenomenal.
when was that? Was that the summer or recently?
It was summer. It was August.
Okay.
He dropped a mixtape and he had an EP out. He's done a lot of stuff. He always puts out tons of music, but yeah,
Hmm.
he put out a mixtape, and I think it was a release show for the mixtape. And
Hmm.
it's called I Can't Sell These because he rapped over a bunch of songs that weren't his. And
That's really funny.
he put it up for
That's
free on
really
Band.
good.
It's only on Bandcamp, and it's almost like
Yeah.
a standard mixtape on Dat Piff, except it was on Bandcamp. But it was great. It was a lot of fun, and it was late, and I don't like late shows. I don't like shows that with a lot of acts, and I don't like shows that start late. But this show was unbelievable. I made an exception.
I think 3 acts is perfect.
That's it.
And
Yeah.
I went to a show the other night at Babies where the show ended at 9:15. Oh my God. I was like, thank you. I love you. I love you.
Yeah.
Please. I will give you all
Yes.
my money. So good. Um, I think the second show that I want to talk about, and it's something that um it's a band I've seen before, and it's a venue I've been to a million times before. But it was Native Son at Our Wicked Lady. And I hadn't been to Our Wicked Lady in years, since pre-pandemic. And Native Son's a band I hadn't seen in also many years. But this was a night where I was bored and I said, let me just take my camera and go to a show. And it was August or something. So I walked over to Our Wicked Lady and Native Son played. And before they were on, see, I knew people loved this band. I was like, oh, they're fun and I've seen them before, but like, I didn't know how popular they were, really, at least locally. But I show up and it's the rooftop at Our Wicked Lady, and it was packed. And there was this palpable energy of like excitement. Everyone was like so stoked for them to play. I was like, okay, this is interesting. Like, I haven't really seen this before. So they get on, they start playing, and then immediately most of the crowd erupts into a mosh pit. And the energy coming from Native Son into onto the rooftop of Our Wicked Lady was just absolutely insane. I mean, everyone was crowd surfing. I mean, it was a steady stream of people that were just going up and crowd surfing and then going there. Um, it was just absolutely insane. I can't describe the energy other than it was just frenetic and frenzied. And people took the guardrail and crowd surfed the guardrail. So it was that level of like, oh my God, something was really happening here. And the band, of course, just I mean, they're fun. They're a really fun band, but on stage, they know how to work the crowd. They're one of those bands where I've talked to people about this before. I think there are some bands that just know how to work a crowd. Like they're popular and they're good because they know how to work a crowd really, really, really well. I think they're one of those bands, one of those groups. And yeah, I kind of came out of that show ears ringing, being like, oh my God, I did not expect to have that experience. I think that was part of it. Like I had no idea this was going to happen. There was no expectation. I didn't know 3 hours before that I was going to go to a show. So it was this unexpected, like frenzied show. But I think that's one of my best shows of the year. So yeah, I can't believe that show. So
The last show on my list is kind of a similar vein of you, because it's a band I've seen before, and it's in a venue I've been many times before. And that was Death from Above 1979 at Music Hall Williamsburg. It was a sold out show. And let me just say this. If you're ever going to a show now in any of these Bowery or AXX Axis shows, make sure you get your ticket at Will Call. Because I know people have been having problems with their mobile tickets or whatever, but just I go to Will Call, you get the physical ticket and there's no problems.
mhm,
Yeah. But anyway, it was a sold out show, and it was so crowded. I went up to the mezzanine. They opened up the mezzanine. And
mhm.
it was the first time I was at the mezzanine at the music hall. And just like what you said about Native Son, like Death from Above, they know how to control the crowd. Like Sebastian and Jesse have been playing shows for 20 years, and they're just at this point they just do it because they love it. And Sebastian felt so comfortable. Like at one point, like I was looking at his body language. Like he put his elbow on one of his like cymbals, and he was just like talking to the crowd. He was like, guys, like New York City, I love New York City. I went to this restaurant where I got a steak from this lesbian, and I was dying laughing at that story because it was just so funny the way he said it. It was just hilarious. But it was such a good show, and it felt like a party. It felt like a party. Everybody was together enjoying the same thing. Like
Yeah.
when you go to a show, sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect. Um, some people are enjoying it and paying attention, but everyone's in their own little world. But this show, everybody together was enjoying this show. It was just awesome. And they did a lot of stuff that they haven't done in years. They did Romantic Rights, and the last time I saw them, they did not do that song at all. And the whole place lost their mind. Like, people reacted very well to a lot of their songs throughout their discography, which is a good sign. They didn't,
Yeah.
the crowd wasn't just there to love the hits. Yeah, they loved the hits too. They did some stuff in their first album, but they did some stuff in their new albums, and the crowd just lost their shit. And there was mosh pits, but after the moshing was over, I saw people pick each other up and like hug each other. Like, I've never seen that before. I've never seen that before. It was amazing. It was such a good experience. And I look back at that show like fondly. It was so much fun. And the next time Death from Above comes to New York, I gotta go, because every time I've seen them, it's been exciting. Like, I saw them at Huntington at the Paramount. Right after Trump got elected, and I was very sad and depressed. And I went to this show and I felt great. And I was like feet from them, and it was just because they have such a big sound for two people. Huge sound. It was just tremendous. Such a good time.
Yeah, they and that was recent. That was like honestly maybe less than 2 weeks ago, right? You just saw them. You just
It's unbelievable.
I love that idea, and you mentioned it, of like people being in the moment and kind of feeling like they're all enjoying this in the moment together. And like that's a really hard thing to describe if you haven't, like, I guess, seen it. But like last night, for example, the band was fine that I saw last night. They were fine. I didn't know them, but they were fun. They were just a lot of fun. But the crowd was just, everyone was there, there was no cross-armed like, oh, that's pretty good. Everyone was just having the best time. Everyone it just felt like a big party. I feel like those are the best shows. And that was the Native Son show as well. Everyone kind of I felt like everyone was like all in this show, in this moment together. No phones were out. I mean, I know that sounds like, oh, no one, not a cell phone in sight, but like, everyone was just like enjoying the moment. Really. And it was just the most fun. And I think those are the best shows when it just feels like a party.
Yeah, and that show that I went to, and everything that you're describing, and seeing as the feeling that you get from those shows, and the shows that I talked about, the shows you talked about, that's why I don't like festivals, because festivals, you don't get that experience at all. Everyone's literally in their own world, except for like the headliner. Like when Jay-Z came on, when I went to Meadows Festival, everybody was enjoying Jay-Z together. It was a great moment. But outside of that, everyone's literally in their own world. There's like 5 different bands playing. It's overwhelming. You walk 2 feet, Lizzo's playing. You walk another 2 feet, 21 Savage is playing. You walk another few feet, St. Paul and the Broken Bones are playing. Literally, I'm describing you exactly what I saw.
Was that actually
that? Yeah. That's exactly what was happening. It was and Kamaya was playing. It was overwhelming. It was too much for me. Like, I just my God, it's too much. And it's hot, and it's just, you're overpaying for everything. Food, drinks, desserts. It's just spend lots of money. And I hate that.
Spend lots of money and then spend more money at the show. That's the whole and I don't know if we spoke about this, but have you seen the Woodstock 99 documentary?
Absolutely. It was unbelievable. And
it was insane.
Yes. You know what has been sticking in my, like, what stuck out to me watching that was when they were talking about DMX. When DMX was performing and the whole crowd, mostly white males, were singing along to every single word that DMX was saying. And I didn't hear, like, it was uncomfortable. It was uncomfortable. And it tells you everything about Woodstock 99. It tells you everything about that period of time, the late 90s. It was horrible. Like, that's why I hate festivals, and that's why everybody should watch Summer of Soul. That's all I gotta say about that.
I saw it on the plane back from Lisbon.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Right?
It was such a good, like, I kept like rewinding it and going back and just
Same.
watching it. It took me like Oh, it's like 90-minute movie. It took me like longer than that because I was like, oh, that was so cool. And also, I didn't know about this. I mean, they made a good point. They were like, this was the same summer as Woodstock, or the same year, if not probably before. I think it was like June. And it's not, it wasn't remembered free. They filmed it and it sat on a shelf until, until like, recently when they found it. But like, it was like 500,000 people or something like that. It was 300. It was an insane amount of people, or like 100. It was still a bonkers amount of people just like in one place enjoying all the music. And I'd never heard about it. And I'm so glad it exists. But it was such a phenomenal documentary and it was done so well.
Yep.
Oh my God. Yeah. Summer of Soul. That was really good.
Yeah. It was just,
Yeah.
my God. Like Questlove, he got an Oscar for it, but man, he probably should have got a Pulitzer for that too, because I don't think we would have known about that. Like a free festival in Harlem filled with mostly Black artists, and it was filmed. It was recorded. Um, and nobody picked it up. No TV network wanted it. And the guy who shot it was a white guy, as you saw. He was like, okay, let me sell this as Black Woodstock. Nobody gave a shit. Nobody gave a shit. I'm like, that's depressing. That is really depressing. But anyway, Connor, it was really fun wrapping up the year again with you. We'll do it again in the new year, but it's the last show, My Little Underground, of the year. I'm exhausted. I definitely need a break, but it was been an interesting 2022, I should say, musically.
It has. I think there's so much that came out this year, and there's albums that I didn't even mention that are definitely on my year-end list. I mean, like I had Soul Glow on my list to talk about, and it came out in March. I was like, I can't talk about it.
Yeah,
but
I think I talked about it when we did our midterm show.
Yeah. So there's been so much music this year, but I feel like we're only getting more and more. It's more music is coming out, and it's better. It's just like there's so much coming out right now, but yeah, I'm excited for 2023, which is a bonkers thing to say, but
I actually have there's a lot of albums that I'm anticipating from 2023, which I'm excited to like do that when I do that show in January. So that's it for the year. Happy New Year, Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, whatever everybody celebrates. Or if you don't celebrate, just happy winter, I guess. All right. See y'all in the new year. Later days.